Hey there, potato lovers! Welcome to Enthusiastic Encouragement and Dubious Advice, the podcast for folks who would rather curl into the fetal position than lean in. I'm your host, Patricia LZ Tuttle.
And I'm ready for dessert. I'm Nicole LZ Tuttle. We're recording the show on November 22nd, 2025. We want you all to know that this podcast is independently run, and we're hoping to be supported by listeners like you. Downloading, sharing, and giving us reviews and ratings are free ways to show us support.
And while it is always gift-giving season in our home, it is gift-giving season for a lot of people right now. And we want to remind you that our Patreon memberships not only can be for you, but you can gift them. They start at $3. There are 3 tiers to choose from. As well as the Enthusiastic Encouragement and Dubious Advice newsletter, you can gift a subscription to that. A lot of the issues are free, but there are some behind a paywall, so we will also link that in the show notes. We also have a bookshop affiliate site. You can find that link at EEDApod.com. Any books we mention on the show are linked there, and you can shop at bookshop.org and support us and independent bookstores. One more thing, we do have a merch shop. Right now, there are some stickers up there. You can find a link to the shop on our webpage, EEDApod.com.
And we would love for you all to continue to email us the self-help books you love or love to hate at eedapod@gmail.com. If you listen to our past episode where we talked about how to win friends and influence people, that will give you an idea of what we're hoping to do with some other self-help books.
Yeah, we need to pick out our next one.
Yeah, we do. Okay, so it's time for me to do something we occasionally have to do on the show. I have to issue a correction.
We have to retcon some information.
I don't think it's a retcon. It's just a correction. We're not going back in time and changing the timeline.
That's fair.
We're just admitting that we made a factual error. Unintentionally spread some disinformation or misinformation. It was misinformation.
Yeah, we didn't do it purposely.
Nope.
It's misinformation.
So last episode, I took us on a little tangent to...
Shocking.
to talk about RoboDuck from
Gizmo
DuckTales. Well, that was part of the issue. I named him as RoboDuck, and you even went, RoboDuck! And that is incorrect. The character was named Gizmo Duck, and went on to suggest that maybe Gizmo Duck's real-world secret identity is Launchpad McQuack. That is also incorrect. Gizmo Duck, according to the Darkwing Duck wiki, Gizmo Duck is actually Fenton Crackshell, who, I know, you're just looking at me like, who the heck is Fenton Crackshell? Fenton Crackshell is Scrooge McDuck's accountant, who I guess Scrooge bought the Gizmo Duck suit for in order to help protect his money bank.
Oh, that's right. Accountant and also security.
Yes. And then occasionally helps Darkwing Duck.
Sure. Okay. You know what? Yeah, we definitely put out some misinformation there. So
apologies to the DuckTales universe and fandom. Thank you for not sending us hate mail.
I also love that you still cited your source as the Darkwing Duck wiki.
Yeah. I went to the Darkwing Duck wiki.
We cite our sources on this show.
It's important.
Yeah. So I'm really excited for today's episode, and we are going to talk about the best books we read this year. Not all the books we're going to talk about today are 2025 releases, although a lot of them are, but they are books that we did read or finally read this year. I DNF'd, so did not finish, like 16 books this year. I really had no patience. Like if I wasn't into it, I was DNFing it. Although I do think there were some books I got like halfway through and then I just wasn't into them anymore. So I was like, oh, as we were setting up for this show, am I going to have a lot of books to talk about? But looking back at my story graph, there were many more books I enjoyed than I thought there were.
I do not count the books I DNF. I don't know how many I DNF'd. But according to my story graph, I've read 89 books this year. That may be slightly undercounting because I go through periods of forgetting to put books in story graph and try to catch up, but I do my best. I'm going to talk about the ones I liked. That being said, this is not an exhaustive list of all the books I liked this year. There were definitely more, and we just don't want to make like a 6-part series on the books we loved that we read in 2025.
Yeah, this both is and is not a book show. My other show is a book show.
Is that your license plate frame?
My other show is a book show. Bumper sticker. Reminder again that every book we talk about today, we're going to have affiliate links in the show notes, and they'll all be on a shelf in our bookshop affiliate site, so you can find them all there. And I'm going to kick us off with the book Good Things, Recipes and Rituals to Share with the People You Love, a cookbook by Samin Nosrat. I am a huge Samin Nosrat fan. This is her newest cookbook. There is some reading element to this book. It's not just recipes. And we are obsessed with her first cookbook, Salt, Fat, Acid, Heat. It has improved our lives immensely. Good Things really resonated because Nicole and I have been talking a lot about starting having more regular dinners with friends over. And this book is about feeding the people you love. Samin has a weekly dinner with friends, and she talks about that a lot. And this book was kind of born of that a bit. And one of the things I really love about this cookbook is that it's not so prescriptive that there's no wiggle room. She actually makes a lot of space for you to experiment, to switch things out. She also talks about things like how to cut your vegetables so they look more attractive, or how to plate things, how to make a salad look prettier. I don't know. I just really, really loved it. I was looking forward to this book coming out for like months and months. I think it came out in September of this year. It's also a great book for gift giving, which a lot of these books we're talking about today are great for you or great for someone you know. So that was my first book. And again, we'll link these all in the show notes.
I'm just thinking, could you imagine getting an invite to Samin's weekly dinner?
Well, and the cool thing is that she's also not always the one doing all the cooking. She actually talks a lot about like not being the one doing all the cooking, and it's really a group project. Sometimes everyone's making tamales together. Sometimes it's a cooking together situation, and sometimes, you know, this person brings this thing, this person brings that thing. But yeah, no, that would be amazing. That would be amazing.
I love that idea. Okay, out of the gates, I'm going with a book that I swapped into this list like 2 nights ago because I just finished it. It is A Gentleman's Gentleman by TJ Alexander. And I'm just going to say, like, I love TJ Alexander's books. One of my absolute favorites is Chef's Choice, which I read last year, maybe was on our last year's best books we read. And it is Regency era? Is that what you would call it? Victorian, Edwardian?
Gentleman's Gentleman. Yeah.
Edwardian, because I think they said the
Regency,
king, maybe? I don't know the difference in those eras.
Historical romance.
Historical romance is the way to say this. Of course, you know, in England, it follows around a duke, and he has to get married by his next birthday. And so he has to go to London to participate in the season, which means he needs a valet. And, well, this trans man who's been living his life in his large estate with just his cook and his butler, not used to any of this. And, wow, he gets a very handsome valet.
Shockingly handsome valet.
And then hijinks ensue.
Yeah. I loved it. It was sweet. It was sexy, but it was also hilarious.
It was a lot of fun.
The next book I want to talk about is also something that we both read that I really kind of just forced upon you because I will not shut up about this book. I feel like this was the sleeper book of the year, although Waterstones, which is like the Barnes and Noble of the UK. They chose it as one of their best books this year.
Mm.
So this is Craftland in Search of Lost Arts and Disappearing Trades by James Fox. James Fox is a Cambridge historian, and he travels around the UK, basically talking to craftspeople who are maybe the last or the last few to still be doing this thing.
I want to make sure we're clear. By craftspeople, you don't mean people who make paper dolls and snowflakes and put together like memory books and stuff.
No, we're talking about dry stone walling. So all of those like 4.5-foot stone walls that make kind of a patchwork of the British countryside. Those, like the people who build those, the people who thatch roofs, the people who take reeds and make the lobster and crabbing cages, watchmaker.
A wheelwright.
A wheelwright. Coopers.
Yes,
who
coopers.
make
Barrels.
Or casks. Barrels are a type of cask,
That's
apparently.
right. Yes.
We learned. You know, I feel like one of my favorite things in life, and if you're around my age, you will remember this, on Mr. Rogers, he went to a crayon factory and you got to see how crayons were made. And this has steered a lot of my life because I am obsessed with how things are made. We have gone to so many food factories. In 6th grade, I went to the Mother's Cookies factory, which used to be here in Oakland. But we've been to breweries. We've been to like all these places.
The Jelly Belly factory.
The Jelly Belly factory, which is near here, which I love.
There's the sticker factory up here.
Oh, we went to the sticker factory. That's right.
Yes.
And so I'm obsessed with how things are made. And this whole book. And also the author is just so engaging. He's an amazing storyteller.
He's so compassionate also with the craftspeople. He doesn't just tell you how to take reeds and make a crab pot. He actually engages with the people's story too. How did these people get into doing this craft? Who are they? Why do they keep doing it? And what drives them? The whole chapter on roof thatching wasn't just about the guy who's maintaining roof thatching in Scotland. There was actually this additional tale of this man who lived in this one particular house. It's now a historical home.
Mm-hmm.
So it goes deep into some history and how things work and how they're made. And occasionally he tries his hand at things like dry stone walling and discovers it is not an easy feat.
Yeah, I love this book so much. And again, it's called Craftland. It's by James Fox. But going back to Craftland.
This is like every week in our home.
Every week in our home.
Going back to Craftland.
Like my special interest, clearly. I think you then read it and you really got a sense of like, oh yeah, I understand why Patricia loves this book.
Yeah, no, I thoroughly enjoyed it. I too was a fan of how things are made, including the How It's Made TV show, and now I think YouTube series or something. I don't know. We also had a funny moment in discussing roof thatching in our home because there is a Instagram account for like that thatching guy, and it took a while to figure out he's doing a completely different type of roof thatching than is in this book. This book is like Scottish roof thatching, and this guy's doing like English roof thatching, and they're for different climates and totally different things.
Amazing. Next book I read that I'm also obsessed with is The Conjuring of America, Mojo's Mermaid's Medicine, and 400 Years of Black Women's Magic by Lindsay Stewart. This is about, so I need to back up a little bit because I don't want to make assumptions about everyone's knowledge base. So hoodoo, also known as conjure, also known as rootwork, is African American folk magic. And it is something that bloomed during slavery because my people felt so powerless and weren't finding solace in the same God that the slave masters were saying that they believed in. And so hoodoo sprang up. Power came from ancestors. And it was kind of the magical system of the time, but also involved in that were healers. And before there was like really modern medicine, like there were the white doctors, but also there was always like an older enslaved woman who people really went to if they were sick or needed care.
You mean before humors and the Galen system of medicine and leeches weren't helping everybody get sick?
Shockingly.
But the older black woman who was providing hot soup,
some herbalism, but also I think alongside of that, there was a spiritual element.
yes.
Which then affects a psychological element of like believing you can be healed and believing that this works and things like that. And so it's really fascinating. And this book is about how hoodoo and conjure is really part of the American fabric. She starts off with the man who, I'm using air quotes, invented Vicks Vapor Rub, likely stole the recipe from an enslaved woman. Actually, her descendants have receipts and they have been trying to fight. Well, which is now Johnson and Johnson, right? Like Johnson and Johnson now owns Vicks or whatever, which is used all over the world. And the original recipe is from enslaved women. She talks about black mermaids, and all the kind of outcry when Ariel in the live action Little Mermaid was black. But what you don't know is mermaids are a huge part of African and African American history and culture. And apparently also Hans Christian Andersen was maybe an abolitionist. He went down to Africa, not infrequently. Like, yeah, like there's so many things in this. She also talks about Aunt Jemima and the hoodoo and the conjure involved in there. And again, the appropriation. It was a fascinating book. And the thing is, I went to Marcus Books to buy a copy. And the woman there was like, yeah, we are sold out. We don't think the publisher understood how popular this would be. As it is, I listened to it on audiobook through the library before I bought it. That's how I decided I wanted to buy it. And I was on the wait list for like 3 months.
Yeah, after you told me about it, I went and put myself on the wait list, and I am also on like a 3+ month waiting list, hoping to get a copy of this to listen to. I think also like the paper book from the store, she was like, this may be on back order at this point.
Oh,
like,
the hardcover. Yeah, I did secure a copy. I actually want to get another copy for someone for Christmas, but we'll see. We'll see if that's possible.
Oof. Okay, my next book is When the Earth Was Green, Plants, Animals, and Evolution's Greatest Romance by Riley Black. I'm going to be honest here, I love Riley Black's writing. And this book continues in the same style as her last book, The Last Days of Dinosaurs, except this one is about the evolution of plants on our planet. Riley does an amazing job of painting a picture of what the world was like during the various snapshots of key moments of the development of plant life on our planet. The thing with this book, like I think about it, and I actually think about it almost in pictures. Even though I listened to it on audiobook, the descriptions are so vivid that my memory of this book is in visualizations in my head. And that rarely happens with books, but the writing is just so good like that. So if you love some science and history, this one's for you.
So, next book, In Defense of Dabbling, The Brilliance of Being a Total Amateur by Karen Walron. She talks about hobbies. Also, a big word for hobbies is avocation, which I learned from this book as something you do for the love of it, and you don't have to be good at it. Like doing a hobby, not to be the best at it, but because it's fun and you love it. Nicole's giving me a look. I know. It also makes me cringe. I'm like, no, if I do a thing, like if I'm going to be a bear, be a grizzly, like be the best at the thing. And it's like, no, what if I just want to be like, just do the thing because I love it and just do it for fun?
Intellectually, I understand. And I also understand that in order to get good at something, you have to start out by being bad at something. And that's a real struggle.
Yeah.
Which is why you keep telling me I should read this book.
Yeah, I think it's also a really good book that is a really good gift. It's a really good book to read at the end of the year if you're doing your goals for next year, or in January if you're working on goals. Like, it's a really important, helpful framing.
Okay, my next book is a book that came out in 2023, and it is Bang Bang Bodhisattva by Aubrey Wood. I will say this is the perfect mashup of cyberpunk and noir detective, which I know sounds like a wild range, but it's about a young girl who's, struggling for money. She's a hacker. She's working little gigs and stuff, and she partners up with a noir-style detective. Think like trench coat, fedora, calling people dame. And he's a total Luddite. Does not work with the technology of the day. And some people are being murdered, and we got to figure it out.
Amazing.
It was a lot of fun.
Another book I read this year that I love, and I might even give it a reread. It's Horror for Weenies. Everything you need to know about the films you're too scared to watch by Emily C. Hughes. It actually came out in 2024. I used to be a huge horror fan, and then I turned into a chicken. So now I find myself occasionally reading the Wikipedia summaries of horror movies that I want to see, but I'm too scared to see because they will definitely keep me up at night. So you'll find me just I know everything that Midsummer is about. I've never seen it, but I read the whole Wikipedia page.
Why am I only finding out about this now?
Because it's my little secret. So Emily Hughes takes all of these classic horror films and she talks about them. She gives you a plot summary. She tells you what happens. She tells you if you should watch it or shouldn't watch it. But she also puts it in the context of when the movie was made, as well as its importance to the horror genre, and talks about then, what is it, George R. Romero's Night of the Living Dead, and basically all zombie movies point back to that one. But it's also one of the first horror movies with a black lead, and all these things. And so it's actually really, really good.
Okay, my next one is one we both read. It comes from another one of our new favorite romance authors, Sarah Rash. And this is The Entanglement of Rival Wizards. This is one of two books by Sarah we read this year. This is two grad students at Wizard College who are vying for the same grant. And the grant committee decides, you know what? Y'all's theses are pretty close. We're going to give the grant to both of you, and you both have to work together.
And share a lab.
And guess what? We're starting off as enemies here.
My favorite.
And, they spend some time together. They're from very different backgrounds. One comes from a very wealthy family and the other doesn't. And we learn some things about each other along the way.
Yeah, it is very open door, explicit.
This is not one to listen out loud on the subway or whatever.
Oh my god, or even loudly in your car.
Yeah,
this audio.
It is very on the page.
It is very on the page. Yeah, instead of oops, there's only one bed, it's oops, there's only one lab.
Yeah.
The other book we read this year by the same author, Sarah Rash, is The Nightmare Before Christmas, which is the Prince of Halloween and the Prince of Christmas. And again, enemies to lovers, blah, 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 loved it. And then there's actually a sequel to that called Go Luck Yourself, which is Christmas and St. Patrick's Day, which I read that one. You haven't yet.
Yeah, I'm going to save that one for
March.
For March, yeah.
So good. So hilarious. Laugh out loud. Absolutely changing directions. This year, I also read Destroy This House, a memoir by Amanda Yulee. Amanda Yulee is a woman whose parents were hoarders. And also, they were bad at business and they were very dishonest. And she grew up in this hoarding house. They would let the house fall into disrepair and then just like move in the middle of the night, and absolutely wild. If you get the ick about things like spoiled food and filth, this book is not for you. I actually found it incredibly helpful. My mom was a hoarder, and as we've talked about, we went through a lot of her boxes this year. I actually found this incredibly helpful to read while we were going through these things, because it's like, oh yeah, we're not the only ones. This is a lot of people and is not talked about enough.
Yeah. I don't know if that one's on my TBR yet, but I probably will need to read it as we start going through other stuff.
Yeah.
The next book is another one that we both read and is by a friend of the show. This is Lessons in Magic and Disaster by Charlie Jane Anders. I'm a sucker for witchy books right now, and I loved this book in the way that it sets up its magic system, in that it's not like a passed down by generations, well documented system or whatever. It is a very figuring it out magic system, and it is messy, and I loved it for that.
Yeah, and our main character, Jamie, is a trans woman and she's a grad student, and her mom Serena's been a bit of a recluse, and Jamie's like, I know, I'll teach her magic. That'll help.
That'll help perk her up.
That'll and things go sideways like really fast.
Yeah, and it does deal with a lot of like managing trauma and relationships.
Yeah. And family.
Yeah, and that's what I was getting at, like family relationships that may be difficult.
Mm-hmm.
It's a solid book for that, and I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Another book we both read this year is Marcia, The Joy and Defiance of Marcia P. Johnson by Tourmaline. A lot of people hear Marcia P. Johnson and they're like, oh yes, threw the first brick at Stonewall. And that's like the end of it. That's like all people know. But she was a whole person, and she had a very vivid life both before and after Stonewall. And this book does such an amazing job. It's the first definitive biography of Marcia P. Johnson, and Tourmaline tells it in a way that is so reverent and respectful, but allows us to see Marcia as a whole person.
Yeah, I really appreciated that. This is a book that's always going to have a place on my shelf. I will say that. It is so good. It's so important. Tourmaline spent years putting this book together.
There are also lots of pictures.
I was going to say, yeah, we have the hardcover, and there's a huge section in the middle of full color pictures. And yeah, it gives I think a beautiful and human portrait of Marcia. My next book is another kind of history book. This is Before Gender, Lost Stories from Trans History, 1850 to 1950 by Eli Ehrlich. And I love this book because it kind of goes into the often pre-medicine era of history, like pre-modern medicine, especially in pre-modern gender-affirming healthcare, prior to the discovery and use of hormone replacement therapy and stuff like that, and gives us pictures of people who were what we would call today transgender and living their life in that way, you know, in the late 1800s and things like that. And it is a well put together series of pictures of various people from source material that has been buried deep in the archives for years. And Eli's done an amazing job of piecing this together.
The next book I want to talk about is another one we both read this year. It's actually someone local who we got to meet at one of the bookstore chocolate crawls. It's called Down in the Sea of Angels by Con Wong. This is sci-fi, fantasy, takes place in San Francisco. It is actually kind of 3 different timelines, but they're all connected. And the first timeline is in the early 1900s, and there is basically a young Chinese woman whose father sold her to like a mob boss. to settle his debts. And of course, there was a lot of sex work going on. And the second timeline is maybe like early 2000s tech bro Burner. For those who don't know, goes to Burning Man, like it's his whole personality. And then the third timeline is actually in the future where something happened and there are people with psionic abilities. And so there's a woman who can touch things and kind of tell the history of the thing. And so you learn about how they're all connected, what is going on. And also, like, there's in like the far future, there's a guy who kind of like wants to lock up people with psionic abilities. And so they all kind of need to be in conversation with each other. I loved it. It was so much fun. It was also so different from a lot of stuff I've read this year. It was refreshing. I'm a sucker for things that are local, but I don't think you have to be local to the Bay Area to love this book.
Yeah, I thought it was a ton of fun. I loved the throughput through the different timelines and the way the different timelines interact with and touch each other.
Mm-hmm.
I thought was really well done.
Yeah.
And I really enjoyed it. Okay, this next book is one that literally just came out like last week.
Yeah.
Or something like that. This is I, Medusa by Ayanna Gray. And I don't know, I'm a sucker for Greek mythology retellings. And this one is, of course, about Medusa, or as she's often referred to in the book, Medi. And it's a full fleshed out retelling of the story of Medusa and her three sisters that was, I think, really well done. It was a lot of fun. There is a bit of a content warning on this one for sexual assault. If you're knowledgeable about how Medusa is commonly used in modern times as a symbol, then that will not be surprising to you. But yeah, I love me some Greek mythology retellings, and I think this one was well done.
Just staring at you because you still haven't read Lore Olympus yet.
I know. It's intimidating now. There's so many books on the shelf.
Baby is so good.
I mean, if I want to hit my 100 books, I may need to pull that because I'll get through them faster.
It's all graphic novels. Yeah, and I think there's 9 of them.
Yeah.
There's 9 of them. I love the artwork. I read some of Lore Olympus this year. I've been reading it for a couple of years. Again, this is a Hades Persephone.
I do love me some Persephone.
Another book I want to talk about today, because we're still talking about books, is Careless People, A Cautionary Tale of Power, Greed, and Lost Idealism by Sarah Wynne Williams, who was at Facebook kind of near the beginning. And this is a book that came out and Mark Zuckerberg made a fit and is like, no, we need to get this book shut down. So that just made more people read it. It is wild. It is banana pants. It is absolutely mind-blowing. Just the horrors of Facebook and how it's run and like what went on in the background, especially in the early part, and also just how ineffectual and nebbish Mark Zuckerberg is. And even now, just thinking about the book, and I read it like very early this year, I just can't even wrap my head around how just absolutely wild this book is.
I had forgotten about this book even being out there until you brought it back up on this list, and I think I threw it on my TBR.
Yeah, this is one, I listened to it on audiobook, so I don't know if this metaphor works, but I couldn't put it down. Like, I just had to listen to it almost straight through.
Okay, my next one is If I Told You I'd Have to Kiss You by May Marvel. And this is one of my silly little romance books that I loved this year. It is sapphic spies who are dating in their normal life and don't know that they've been working together as spies for years because they're secret spies. So in their real world life, they don't tell each other that that's their day job. They've been working together for a long time. One is a spy in the field and one is the intelligence or hacker person that helps her out under their code names, the Unicorn and Tabasco.
This is such a you book.
It is. It's think like a Mr. and Mrs. Smith kind of situation, except it's like Ms. and Miss Smith.
The next book we want to talk about is also by a friend. This is Automatic Noodle by Annalee Newitz.
This is hands down like one of my favorite books this year.
Yeah, I loved it. I read it around my birthday. I read it on the plane back and forth to New York. I didn't know cozy dystopian was a thing, but it is.
It's absolutely what we're calling this.
Yeah, robots. This is in the future. California has seceded from the nation after a big war, and there are robots in a ghost kitchen, and they decide they want to open their own restaurant because, they have some autonomy, and they want to do hand-pulled noodles. So they open a noodle restaurant, and it is so good. It's so lovely. I mean, there is talk of war, there is trauma, but there's also found family and delicious noodles. I love a food fiction because I love food. So, yeah, Automatic Noodle is so good.
Do we want to talk about the time briefly that we actually had these like hand-pulled noodles with the author and got served them by a robot?
Yeah, we went out to dinner with Annalie and Charlie Jane a few months ago, and we went to an adorable noodle restaurant here in Oakland, and they have a little robot that brings out your food, and it has a catchy little tune.
It was so cute.
Like it sang a little song, and then it was like, take your food.
And then it like sang its little song as it like drove away.
Yeah, it was great.
It was very cute.
My next pick actually just won the National Book Award for nonfiction. And when I saw that, I almost cried because, yes, absolutely. It's called One Day Everyone Will Have Always Been Against This by Omar El-Akkad. It is about the genocide in Palestine. I think it's a short book. I really do think that, like, the title says a lot of it, right? Like, and we're already seeing that. We're already seeing some people who were on the fence or whatever suddenly like, oh yeah, I've always been against this. It is a hard book, of course, obviously. It is definitely worth the read.
Yeah, you brought this back up and I made sure this got bumped back towards the top of my TBR.
Mm-hmm.
My next book is a book in translation. The English translation came out in 2024. I think it was originally published in Japanese in 2018.
Something like that.
This is Butter by Asako Yuzuki, translated by Polly Barton. This is inspired somewhat by a true story, but this is the story of gourmet cook Manako Kaji, who has been convicted of killing lonely businessmen after seducing them with her cooking. And she doesn't talk to any journalists, but starts talking to journalist Rika Mashita after Rika writes to her asking for her beef stew recipe. And it's a lengthy book. If you like kind of journalist crime type stories, I think this is definitely in that vein.
With gorgeous food descriptions, right?
With really good food descriptions. There are some like rough recipes in there about like, mix this with that and put it together and make sure you're using like real butter. And, oh, have you tried, this very particular, like this very specific type of cheese or this very specific type of butter and stuff, and talking about very high-end ingredients. I think it was a lot of fun. It gets into a lot of kind of the building of a relationship between these two in some way, but also how they use each other and how each other changes through that relationship. It's really an interesting thing with, I think, a lot of commentary on how women are treated in society.
I want to read this book, and I'm really intimidated by the length of this book.
I think you would get through it.
I think I would get through it on audio, probably.
Yeah.
And the last book we're talking about that we both read is Syme's Letter Writer, A Guide to Modern Correspondence, about almost every imaginable subject of daily life, with odes to desktop ephemera and selected letters of famous writers by Rachel Syme. It is definitely the reason there are 5 typewriters in this house right now.
Oh my God.
I'm so sorry.
The other day, I saw on the camera, it's like person with package at the front door, and I look, and you're stumbling in through the rain with a big, heavy trash bag, and I get home, and you're like, I got another typewriter. A neighbor was giving it away.
Yeah, it was free.
I think I read this on audiobook on our New York trip earlier this year. I love it. And as we're talking about it now, it made me realize, do we have a paper copy of this? If not, we should
Yes.
we do. Okay.
We do have a physical copy of it. And it's beautiful. It's beautiful. And it's one I do want to reread. It is about snail mail, obviously, one of the things I love most. And she talks about like all the things you could send through snail mail. But like if you have never sent snail mail, she offers tips on like what you need to do, how to send snail mail, and the big question, what to write about.
Yes. I feel like I need to reread this, as some of our listeners who subscribe to our Patreon or interact with us on our Patreon know that I have gone through some bouts of struggling to write my snail mail. So I feel like I need a kickstart on that.
Yeah, we definitely have a physical copy.
Just the thing I need.
So, this is a long show.
Oof.
But what are you reading right now?
Oh, okay. I am reading Make Room for Love by Darcy Liao. And this is another one of my silly little romance books. But it's kind of like a twofer. There is one part that it's like the two main characters that you're being followed. One of them has to go to New York for a business trip, but her girlfriend, who kind of planned the whole trip, has just broken up with her, and she can no longer stay at the hotel or anything they planned. But one of her best customers lives in Manhattan, and she asks if they can stay with her for a while, and she said sure, but she just lost her job and needs to get away for a little while, so she goes and lives or spends some time in the friend of the other character's house, who lives in the backyard house, and she's trying to get out of town because recently her family just discovered that like 20-something years ago, her father had an extra kid in an extramarital affair, and we're doing a family reunion.
Such a mess. That sounds so messy.
It's so messy. It's so much fun. Yeah, and it's kind of a twofer. One of them is a very like, one of the relationships is very like upfront, in your face, like on the page right away, just like instant chemistry, and the other is very slow burn. So you get both all in one book. What are you reading?
Let's see. I am on audiobook. I'm listening to Black Owned, The Revolutionary Life of the Black Bookstore by Char Adams, and that book did come out this year. Amazing book. Amazing book. It's definitely going to get purchased as gifts for probably a couple of people. And the other book I'm reading, because I don't only read books that come out this year, is I'm finally getting around to my copy of The Best American Food Writing 2019, guest edited by Samin Nosrat. You know what? There have been some essays in this book that are right on time, even though they're from 6 years ago. And it's great.
Yeah, you stop me in my bedtime reading often to tell me about things like Japanese Kit Kats and stuff that you're reading about in this book.
I'm like, listen to this about Japanese Kit Kats or boiled peanuts or
yeah, and I'm like, this sounds fascinating. Okay, well, what's filling your cup?
Oh, we've yapped so much. What's filling my cup is one of my best friends was in Italy, and I asked her to get me a Bialetti mocha pot, which the company will not ship. And it was a very specific one that looks like the Italian flag. It's so obnoxious. I love it so much. And so now I have my very own mocha pot, finally, hands down, possibly the best cup of coffee I have made at home.
Wow.
It is so good. It is so smooth. It is so rich. And I'm using the same beans I use in my French press or my pour over. But no, this is
way better.
Top tier coffee. Nicole, what is filling your cup?
If you know me, you know I love a hot drink, and it is finally gotten cold here in Oakland. And so I had my first hot chocolate of the season the other night, and it was lovely. And I'm looking forward to more evening hot chocolates under my heated blanket on the couch.
Well, that's our show for today. We'd like to thank our awesome audio editor, Jen Zink. You can find her at loopdeloo.com. We'll leave a link to that in our show notes.
You can find the full show notes and transcript at eatapod.com. That's EEDAPOD.com. There, you can also find a link to our Patreon, our bookshop link, and a link to the ongoing Enthusiastic Encouragement and Dubious Advice newsletter. You can also find us on Instagram and Blue Sky at EATAPod, and email us at eatapod@gmail.com.
We are nothing if not consistent.
We would also appreciate it so much if you would subscribe and rate us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, or wherever else you get your podcasts that allow for ratings. It really goes far in helping other people find us. And if you'd like to leave us a comment, you can do so at any of the places I just named, or email us.
We would also appreciate anyone who could subscribe to us on Patreon. Support is going to help us keep this show going, especially without ads. You can find us at patreon.com/eatapod. In the meantime, we hope you find ways to be kind to yourself, drink some water, and read a book. We'll be talking to you soon.
I can't believe we have so many more books to talk about that we just didn't.
Yeah, I'm a book yapper.
Enthusiastic Encouragement and Dubious Books.